Well, it's official. We are on verdict watch here outside the federal courthouse in Dallas. I'm Andrea Lucia. I'm here with Kelsy Mittauer, my producer. Both of us have been sitting in every moment of this trial, one or the other of us. This morning we heard closing arguments, and let me just ask you right there, like what stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of their last chance, right, to the last thoughts that the jury is going to have before they go back, and now they're, of course, they're at lunch. But yeah, I mean, I think the prosecution, they came out strong, right? They're calling these IV bags medical bombs. That's what they said. They were trying to just put all the pieces together for the jury. You know, they showed some of the videos again. They talk about how everything lines up, everything makes sense with Ortiz being the one that did it.
And they walked us through each bag, each count, each patient, and how it all broke down. When Ortiz picked up the first bag, when he put it back in, when the bomb, as they put it, went off with the patient, and so they really walked us through it in the beginning. They had the initial closing arguments, then it went to the defense. And what did you think about the defense's argument?
You know, something that really stuck out to me wasn't even what he was saying, but it was what the jury was doing. Is I noticed a couple of them really writing notes down. They were looking up at what he had put on the slides and then looking down. They were writing exactly what was up there, the holes that he was poking in their case. And that part was specifically during what he called the selective science. You know, he's kind of saying that the prosecution wants it both ways, right? Like some of the bags test for this and some of them don't. And it was at that part where they were really, I don't know, at least a few of them were seriously taking notes. And I haven't seen that a lot during this trial. I don't know, have you seen them writing a lot?
I did notice yesterday when the defense had its case, they seemed more fidgety than usual. And I know I brought that up to you, and your thought was because a lot of the defense's testimony was technical, difficult to absorb, difficult to...
A lot of science.
Yes.
And I mean, that's been a tough thing, you know, we said on both sides that they've had to teach this very technical science and this testing methods. And not only do you have to learn like how it works, but then why they think it worked or didn't work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that stuck out to me. I mean, and then I think the defense, again, they came out really strong. They're saying this was Baylor, Scott, and White. That it was a series of either medical mistakes or poor health or whatever. But he was saying, you know, Baylor, Scott, and White was desperate for something, for it to be someone's fault and not their fault, right? That they want it to be Dr. Ortiz, and that's why they put this case together.
So we heard from the prosecution, we heard from the defense, and then the prosecution actually came back and they get the final say. They get to rebut what the defense has come out and said in closing arguments. And I did think that they were very, they very directly went after the arguments that the defense was making. They went, point by point and broke down the defense's argument. And what stood out to you from that?
Well, just what you said, that they went point by point. I mean, he must have been working on that slide during the defense's closing
I was thinking about that.
Because it was point by point. And he made the point, he said that reasonable doubt doesn't require perfection, and that, they were putting together these puzzle pieces, and yeah, if you take each piece and you pick it apart, it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect. And they just said, look at the whole thing,
Right.
And here's why these things don't make sense for what they're saying. But if you step back and look at it, and then the 3 out of 5 thing, I think on both sides, the defense said...
So to clarify, there were 5 counts involving 5 bags that were tampered with, allegedly. And the defense is saying really only 3 of those cases fit this pattern. 2, maybe 3 of the cases fit this pattern, and is 3 out of 5 really good enough? And they both discuss that.
Right. Well, from the defense side, they're saying if 3 out of 5 people say that something is good, is that good enough for you? Like, would you believe that? But then, I don't know, it really hit home for me when the prosecution came back and said, okay, he's putting 5 bags in the warmer, and 3 out of 5 times you see, like, is that good? Would you want one of those bags? And I felt like, wow, that's a tough question to answer.
Yeah. They also threw back the confirmation bias argument. The defense has brought up confirmation bias in its opening statements, brought it up again today in closing arguments, essentially this idea that the prosecution has come up with this theory that Dr. Ortiz is the most convenient person to blame, and that the evidence, they are really only presenting the evidence that supports that theory, and that it's affecting, that they are trying to justify a pre-existing belief. And then the prosecution came back and said, the ones with confirmation bias here are the defense.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting and
Yeah.
really played out. If you want to believe what the defense is saying, here's what you have to have accepted, and laid it out.
Just as a person watching in the gallery, I felt like both sides, strong arguments on both sides.
I thought they both did really good jobs in
Yeah.
terms of the attorneys working with what they have.
Right. And just telling it in a relatable way, because like you said, some of the technical stuff was, it's hard to get through. And they even admitted that some of the testimony it was hard to sit through, hard to understand, hard to be engaged. But now, the jury's got it, and we just...
Now, there's one thing that kind of stood out to me, and it made me smirk a little bit, because last time we were talking about the strongest evidence in the case, we both were talking about the video. The video is the hardest thing for the defense, I think, to overcome. And when it came to closing arguments, the prosecution was playing key bits of video. Then the defense comes up, and the defense says, hey, we don't want to overwhelm you by playing more video. And they played a little bit, but they, for the most part, I don't think wanted the jurors to continue to see that.
But something, and this is going back into the trial and the defense's case, but the last time we did this debrief outside, we talked about that video of him filling the syringes, right? And how powerful that video was being played. There were people shaking their heads in the gallery, somebody's crying, the patients were emotional. It was extremely powerful the first time, and then I thought it was interesting that the defense, they played it 2 or 3 times during theirs. I felt like they were kind of trying to take the power away from it, and kind of show this isn't that big a deal. This isn't that big a deal. Look.
Right.
And so I think they did what they could to kind of take the shine off of that.
They were drawing attention to the fact that maybe people around Dr. Ortiz who may have seen him taking a bag or saw him with the syringe, that in the surveillance video that you're watching, didn't react in shock, didn't say, what are you doing? Why do you have a syringe?
They didn't confront him or say anything. Yeah.
Right. But then again, both sides have brought up, when you look at the pieces individually,
right,
there is, you can justify some of these pieces individually. The hard thing to overcome is the puzzle together. That's been the prosecution's
totality.
case. The totality of it.
Harken back to the eclipse.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
All right.
Okay, well, we're on verdict watch, and we will be reporting when that verdict comes out.